when I first met Matthew Perry, who was also a tremendous amount of influence on me. Matthew Perry, and of course, I guess this goes to who and what I am. The first bill I introduced when I came to the Congress was to name the new post office that was being planned for Columbia in honor of Matthew J. Perry. Now, Matthew was the attorney that represented us in the sit-ins. And when I met him, though I had seen him before, he selected me. And I guess this goes back to the heart of something you asked earlier. Matthew told us that there were like 300 kids arrested that day, and we had to go to trial. Now, what was happening at the time was that every time a student got arrested, their hometown newspapers back at home would print their names on the front pages, these little weekly newspapers. And now that was a signal to the factory or mill owner that this parent is to be fired. And so their parents were losing their jobs. So Matthew Perry, Ida Quincy Newman, came to me and says, somebody's going to have to take a stand. And Clyburn, your father's a minister, your mother's a beautician, your dad ain't preaching to any white people, your mother's not fixing any white people's heads. You are going to take a stand. Now, that made me a leader. It had nothing to do with me. And so I tell that story often. I tell people, you know, all of this stuff about how great you are, circumstances dictate a whole lot.
But Perry and Newman had to know from this group of 300 people that you stood out some way, and it was not just because your father's a minister, your mother's a beautician, somehow or another, they knew you. You stood out to them. What was it made you stand out?
Well, Ida Quincy Newman knew me very well. I mean, he knew me from a child. And I was out there giving speeches and stuff. I mean, before we ever got arrested.
Right.
I mean, you know, I was leading. In fact, once again, the circumstances. There were 7 of us that organized the sit-ins. And of course, I would always lead one group. Had a real good relationship, still maintained a good relationship with Deacon Jones. We were classmates at South Carolina State. And I got a lot of my real energy and confidence because Deacon Jones always marched in my group. So, but once again, that was his doing. He said, look, I'm going with your group. He always, you know, recognized me as some kind of a leader. But I don't know how to explain this except that I really, this was when during my student days, I really never saw myself as a student leader on the campus.
Nonetheless, other people were thinking of you in that way
Sure.
then. Matthew Perry, Ida Quincy Newman, in some ways Deacon Jones, and the students who pick you to lead one of these demonstrations. Now,
Chuck McDew was on that campus with me, Charles McDew, Lloyd Williams. Lloyd Williams told me in later years, he said to me, he said, you know, you were the guy who was always the bridge between us and them. He said, you know, we could give the fiery speeches and we could do all the marching. He said, but you're the one that always kind of brought it all together. You kind of build the bridge, you negotiate it. You're the one that made it happen. And I guess I read something that he said. It was right after I got elected to Congress, and somebody said something to him. And he told, so I went to him asking about it. He told me, he said, you know, they used to talk about this all the time, that I was a guy that was always needed. They really got a little upset when I went to jail because they always wanted me to go do the negotiating.